The Ambassadors of Death is a frequently overlooked serial from Jon Pertwee's first season of Doctor Who. Why does this gritty 7-part thriller receive so little attention? The Ambassadors of Death might not be in many fans' top 10 lists, and this may be because it's surrounded by so many classics. Season 7's opening story, for example, is often regarded as one of the greatest ever made and introduced the deadly outings to the Whoniverse, penned by one of the series' most celebrated writers, Robert Holmes. Then there is Doctor Who and the Silurians by Malcolm Hulke, which introduced another famous Doctor Who monster, the Silurians. And to end the season, there is the dystopian and heart-stopping Inferno by Donna, which may be one of the bleakest Doctor Who stories ever told, and certainly one of the most memorable. The Ambassadors of Death, therefore, has stiff competition, and its journey to the screen wasn't a smooth one either, having originally been planned for the show's 6th season and facing multiple delays, setbacks, and rewrites. Technically, it was penned by the accomplished Doctor Who scribe David Whittaker, but in truth, he made few contributions to the finished product, even though he pitched the original version of The Ambassadors of Death, and indeed worked on many of the early drafts. The final scripts were mostly composed by Malcolm Hulke, who went uncredited for contractual reasons. None of this is to say that Ambassadors of Death is a bad story necessarily, but it certainly had its problems. At the same time, it's worth remembering that Doctor Who was in the middle of redefining its identity, with a new Time Lord at the helm and a new format. The program now comprised of Earth-based stories, with the Doctor having lost his ability to pilot the TARDIS and teaming up with a military outfit called UNIT. And in many ways, The Ambassadors of Death represents the quintessential UNIT adventure. Many of the key ingredients are there, including beloved series regular Nicholas Courtney as the Brigadier and John Levine as Sergeant Benton. There are car chases and gunfights aplenty, with the action choreographed by the stunt team Havoc, who did a lot of work on Doctor Who in the 1970s. As a result, The Ambassadors of Death often feels more like a James Bond movie than a Doctor Who story, which is no bad thing. At the same time, there were consequences for this, and one of these was the budget. One particular sequence saw a unit convoy being ambushed by a whole army of soldiers, tanks, and helicopters, and this convoy just so happened to be carrying a full-sized space module on a truck. That's 2 armies, a spaceship, multiple vehicles, and a plethora of explosions, none of which were cheap. Terrence Dicks, the series' script editor, who was ever mindful of the finances, came up with a simple scenario in which the ambushers erected a fake diversion sign which led the convoy astray and allowed the attackers to pilfer its cargo. But when the director Michael Ferguson read this sequence, he found it dull and uninspiring and decided to press ahead with a full-scale movie-style assault, as originally intended. Inevitably, The Ambassadors of Death went considerably over budget, and the production team were dragged over hot coals in the aftermath, forced to explain why they had gone ahead with such an expensive shoot. Terrence Dicks, by his own admission, was one of the people calling out Michael Ferguson for his rather liberal interpretation of the show's finances. "Well, Terrence," he reportedly said, "put it this way, you were doing your job and I was doing mine." At the same time, Doctor Who's lack of money wasn't always easy to circumvent. For example, The Ambassadors of Death required the original TARDIS console, which had been used continually since its creation in 1963 and was nearing the end of its life. And when it appeared on screen, it was clearly in a state of disrepair, with its time rotor, center column, being replaced with an inanimate, cheap-looking alternative. This original console would make its final appearance in the following story Inferno, before being consigned to the rubbish dump. Moreover, the very fact that this story ran to 7 episodes was because of the tight budget. The BBC BBC reasoned that it could save money by producing longer serials that were set on Earth. They wouldn't have to create so many alien spaceships and exotic vistas on a weekly basis and could film more of the series on the streets. And so, inevitably, The Ambassadors of Death is impacted by its somewhat slower pacing. Certainly, it's not the white-knuckle thrill ride that it could have been as a 4-part story, but the rest of this is subjective. You will have to decide for yourself if The Ambassadors of Death works across its near 3-hour duration. But as mentioned previously, the director Michael Ferguson makes every effort to ramp up the pacing. This is true even in the story's title sequence. The Ambassadors of Death is almost unique in Doctor Who history, in that its story captions are afforded their own separate title card, complete with a jump scare sting as the words of death burst onto the screen. So if you're not thrilled by the gunfights and explosions, you will at least get a kick out of the titles. So does The Ambassadors of Death really deserve its place of relative obscurity in the pantheon of Whodom? Well, with its release on Blu-ray as part of the Season 7 box set, there has never been a better time to evaluate it. And now that it has been upscaled into high definition and in full color, it has never looked better in fact, than it would have done at the time of original broadcast. Tell us, reader, what do you love most about The Ambassadors of Death? And which is your favorite story from Doctor Who Season 7? Let us know in the comments below.
Presenting the Doctor Who TARDIS unisex messenger bag from Lavarzi. The bag itself is littered with white silhouettes of the TARDIS on a conveniently TARDIS blue background. It's a simplistic yet effective design and not too over the top. In the centre there's a patch which features the current era Doctor Who logo. I really love how the zippers also feature a small circular Who logo etched into it. The central pocket is quite small, which is convenient for smaller models of phone, although personally I would have liked to see this pocket be ever so slightly bigger. The handles are big and bulky, which is perfect for travel, and if you're not a fan of handles, this bag also comes with a strap, transforming the piece into a shoulder bag. And you guessed it, this also features a lovely TARDIS pattern. Opening up the bag, we are greeted by a lovely lighter grey lining. On one side it features various smaller padded pockets, perfect for your precious things. On the other side, a laptop compartment is present, featuring buttons which holds your electronics in place securely. And of course this is a Doctor Who bag after all, and there is a lovely reference to classic series Doctor Who, featuring an embroidered seal of Rassilon, which is a perfect touch. On the sides of the bag there is additional button straps which when undone makes the bag appear to be more rectangular, which is useful for carrying larger laptops and notepads. One of my personal favourite aspects of this bag is the back section, which can be slid over the handles of a suitcase, securing the contents whilst travelling. I found this really useful whilst travelling to and from university. The TARDIS messenger bag is available to purchase now.